Hello, everyone. Dr. Eames here. This time, I'd like to talk about how we communicate culture. As you can see from this chart here, we've got how we do things and the ways we communicate. And we've got in the left column, the categories of things that we do or the ways we do them, and then how those are really expressed. So, for instance, in how we do things, we have beliefs and values. They're buried within us and not easily on display. But one expression of those things is our family relationships. The things we believe in and our values come out in the way we treat our family and so forth. When it comes to things like norms, the do's and don'ts of society, well, that's us modifying our behavior, using self controlled direction to fit into society and to do the things that culture tells us that we should be doing. And so there are informal rules, unspoken rules that are out there. Those are things we respond to that come right out of our cultural fabric. These may be something that are long term or something that just come and go. So we see behaviors and style of the way we dress, maybe, or the way we act, or the things that we say. And then, of course, we've got our rituals and customs, how we do things. And so we make ceremonies that have a lot to do with a variety of rituals, from funerals to marriages to birthdays and so forth, but especially around food, which is an important human activity. And so, depending on your culture, the way you express eating together and actually how you go about it and so forth, it can be culturally unique. And it's similar to when we talk about how we communicate. When it comes to stories and myths that we have about important personages or historical figures or whatever it is, a lot of times that's expressed through art, a variety of art. Symbols are very important. They resonate with us. For Americans, it's the American flag, the picture of the Constitution. But an expression of a symbol could also be something like music, which is very powerful. And there are certain songs, for instance, right, that are very symbolic. Um, when we hear the Star Spangled Banner, for most of us, it evokes a certain sort of feeling, and that's what symbols do. And it's going to vary depending on your culture. But it is interesting how many cultures have musical symbols that mean so much to them. And so we do sort of share that as a human trait. Slogans is a way we communicate. Language, certainly. Slogans are a short, direct way to communicate some idea or thought. And slogans are used for all sorts of reasons. In protests, they're used in war, they're used in peace, they're used in politics. Slogans are just a shorthand to make a point. And then, of course, we communicate all the time, comparing things and using similes and so forth. It's like this or different than that, or compared to this, or look at this one thing and think how similar or different it is. So those use of metaphors are just an expression that we use. Here it says dialect. Well, a dialect could be one way of expressing ourselves. Now, when it comes to other expressions of culture, let's see if I can get this slide to advance here. We use media and we use methods of teaching and learning, most certainly. And today, it certainly is the media that we choose is just as important for communicating as the teaching and learning methods that we use. Because today, technology and communications technology in particular does rule much of our lives. We still use our networks of relationships to communicate, but we do it in slightly different ways. We're not a letter writing people anymore like we were a couple of generations ago. Now we're electronic text message people, or even now using interactive video and so forth. We still communicate using the grapevine. We have a couple of those, almost all of us. You have a personal line, all the people that you interact with and get information from and ask questions of and keep up to date on whatever it is you're interested in. You have that personal grapevine, but you also have a work grapevine in the organization where you find out things that you want to know and so forth. And then we still use written electronic forms of communication. We have to have historical records. We have to be able to go back and verify things for accuracy and all sorts of reasons. And then, of course, we do pass on our culture by the sort of teaching and learning methods that we use. Um, we do all kinds of things. We use formal education, like we're having here, or we'll use some form of training. And most major cultures have, or even smaller cultures have some sort of mandatory education system. Um, and we pass on our culture by correction and direction, which just means this is back to that notion of mental programming by our parents telling us what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Um, this is about how we raise our children and so forth. And even the use of role modeling, it plays a much bigger role in culture than any of us probably really think about. Um, it's really showing by example. When we role model, we're always on display, and it's that way in our personal lives, and it's that way in the business world. A manager or leader is always on display. Everything that's done is either watched and noticed on some level. People analyze, they judge, they form opinions and expectations based on your behavior. And so role playing is a very big part of our lives, but I think most of the time we don't really think about it. But the way you greet people, people notice that, how quickly you are to respond, whether or not you're someone who's quick to take offense, whether you're fair, whether people perceive you as open minded. So if we have a set of values, we probably want to act them out so people can get that out of us, from us, that we project it. So if it's being culturally savvy, then show some cultural knowledge and so forth and some understanding. We just have to make sure that we really are sending out the messages that we want. Okay, folks, that's all I want to talk about this time. I'll talk to you again soon.